SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be
like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Well, let's do this. How y'all doing? Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi this morning. Hope you're having a great Friday, Lance. I'm in a weird mood for some reason. I feel good, although it is so hot and humid and muggy. My allergies are killing me, but otherwise, I'm glad it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. It's been one of those weeks, huh? I mean, it just kind of keeps on coming at you. And,
how has your week been?
The heat's relentless.
What's been up this week?
Yeah, not any rain, not much. We had a couple little storms blow through at 1 billion miles an hour.
Yeah.
It looks like we may have a little of that today, as you know.
And those pop-up cells that just come through. And
they're rough.
There were some street line winds around the country yesterday that I saw that knocked over semi-trucks. And I'm sure you saw this. I want to talk about it later this hour. The meteor that swiped through the sky last night on Georgia, South Carolina. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, it's just some weird, severe weather patterns hitting across the U.S. in addition to the heat.
And thank goodness it wasn't an Iranian rocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't know.
One of those
depends on which conspiracy theory you buy into.
Never know. But yeah, it looks like we'll have, as far as the weather today and tomorrow, the Delta, 30% chance of showers, 102 heat index value. So it's going to be hot. Yeah. Not a lot of wind. Basically the same thing as it has been,
So June. Yeah. So June weather is what you're saying.
Oxford, I think you're going to get a break in Oxford, a high near 90. They don't even put the heat index values on there. So maybe it'll be close to 90, which is fairly pleasant. Not a lot of wind, about 30% chance of rain. And that's about what it's like all over. 20% chance down on the coast in Gulfport. Lows in the evening will be nice. High probably around 87 to 90 today. 60% chance.
Wait, what are you saying? 87 is going to be nice?
Yeah, 87 is great, man.
Bring a hoodie with you. Yeah. It's 87. Wear a hoodie.
So you might have a little more chance of rain on the coast today through the earlier part of the day. So about 60% chance. But again, the heat index values don't look to be spiking in the north and in the very south part of the state. But if you're in the middle part, eastern Shibuya, you're going to have about 93 and a heat index around 100. So, and again, about a 40% chance of showers, not a lot of wind. So central part of the state going to be cooking. North part and the south part maybe a little bit more pleasant if 90, is pleasant. So,
well, it's better than it's all in your perspective. I personally don't like the 90-degree weather with 90% humidity, but it is nice. I mean, the sun does feel good. And
be a little thick on the
get outside and do what we do need. The good thing about the rain is that maybe it will tamp down some of the pollen that's everywhere that's affecting, I don't know, my allergies, maybe your allergies, everybody else's allergies.
Well, you get a chance to express your discontent tomorrow because it is International Caps Lock Day, so you can holler at the clouds all you want tomorrow.
Oh, I can't wait to see the Truth Social posts from Donald Trump, though.
Oh, man.
Somebody... I love reading Donald Trump's tweets. Somebody needs to tell him to stop screaming on his Truth Social posts all the time. Yeah. You don't have to put everything. If everything is in all caps, then nothing is in all caps.
Well, I think it also is an age thing, too, because every now and again, 70-plus-year-olds have a tendency to be like, man, I just want to make this point. So they'll put it in all caps, not knowing that maybe that is you're hollering at your recipient.
That's a breach of protocol. Yeah. That's one of the ways you can tell when Trump has actually sent the post on his own versus I forget her name. He's got a young assistant that does all of his tweets, that does all of his Truth Social posts. She dictates them, and she types them out in real time. He reviews them and sends them out. You could tell when the grammar is proper, there's no upper and lowercase caps, that's not a Trump tweet. When it's all caps and has a weird syntax to it, and that was probably from him directly. Not that there's anything wrong or right either way, but that's one of the ways you could tell the difference between the two.
Yeah, he is a master of social media, and I think in the first term it was a little bit more unique. Now everybody uses it, so his posts are just thrown in there with everybody else's. And I mean, you have the big wedding of Jeff Bezos and his future bride. I think he's getting some protests regarding
like
all
filling
that.
canals with inflatable alligators. I've seen some weird stories coming out of that.
Yeah,
out of that wedding.
I mention that because I'm not one of these celebrity wedding or royals where I get to goo gaga over who all went to the wedding and what everybody wore. And I think he paid out quite a bit on the last one too. So you might want to be careful. I think this is
I'm sure there's an
love,
elaborate prenup involved in this.
Yeah, but they're going to beat that. Come on, man. When you're the man that owns half the world and ships everything to everyone, she'll get it, but at the end of the day, hopefully it works out. But yeah, there's a lot of celebrities there, A-listers only, obviously, and I was not invited. You may have gotten your invitation.
No, maybe it's in my mail. I check my mail like once every 2 weeks, which is probably not a good habit to be in.
I don't even check.
The only thing that's going to come in is a bill, and I do everything electronically. I don't need to check the mail every week.
I mean, if you get a bill in the mail these days, that's even kind of like unique because it's mostly just those cards that tell you there's a mosquito service that wants you to use them or whatever it is. And hey, that's a direct mail marketing, I guess. Yeah, low end return on that. At least you're not calling me, every day begging for my business because at some point I actually kind of start having fun with that. The same people start calling you long enough. You're like, hey, yeah, send me 4 of those and, get them all worked up and then hang up on them.
I do enjoy messing with the scam callers and the scam text messages that come in.
Oh, yeah, some of those are great.
Some of the longest standing relationships I've been in recently have been with the spam text message people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're a trip. I mean, really, if you start, like you said, if you have the right perspective, you can always have a good time with that if you have nothing better to do and just wait on the call. It's coming. It's coming.
You said off air before the show started that I looked beachy today in my
beachy wear.
But I'm looking at the SuperTalk.fm video stream as well. You've got a nice, almost a Hawaiian shirt, not quite like a Hawaiian pattern, but it's Hawaiian inspired.
Yeah, very floral. I love my button-up, short sleeve floral patterns in the summer. They're just cooler, honestly. And I don't have to button up all the way until I'm coming into the building, so I feel like I'm accomplishing more of a Superman feat. It's like, yes, I'm getting this done as I get in the door, and I will save the day with news and commentary. But no, I love my florals. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I watch the SuperTalk.fm stream a lot during the day when I'm working from home. I work from home, so normally I can, especially in the summer, wear shorts and T-shirts unless I've got to go somewhere for a meeting with somebody. But I see Richard and Gerard coming in with sports coats and suits and ties, although Gerard seems to be relaxing as the weather gets warmer. I saw him in polo shirts the other day, so maybe I don't have to worry about dressing up as much as I thought I did.
He hits a lot of meetings, too. He has a lot of places that he has to get
to
after the show. Yeah, well, and, he's greatly respected in our community and as well amongst our leaders. His mind works in a very unique way, and he's kind of like a calculator. If you ever really get him going on the numbers, I mean, they're in there. It doesn't take much to get him out, but you can see why he was so successful in his industry and just the vast wealth of knowledge and the ability to communicate it. It's very unique, and I always get a kick out of visiting with him, and because he has such a lighter side too that I hope that our listeners get to his sense on air at times because he's a lot of fun. Gerard really is. So, but yeah, the suits. I don't know if that really. I see him so different when I see him in a suit. I'm like, boy, where are you headed today? And I got to go I got to do this and that, and he loves it too. So it's not like a gotta.
Right.
He loves doing the work. And but yeah, I'm more of a blue jeans and throw a pair of olive pants on here and there. If there's something important though, I have that stuff in the coffer if I need it.
Yeah, I'm dropped 100 pounds. I went to put a suit on the other day, and I can't wear this. I'm swimming in this.
I ran into a friend of mine. I hadn't seen him.
Can't afford a new wardrobe right now. What am I going to do?
I ran into a friend of mine yesterday as I was coming out and hadn't seen him in years, and he had dry cleaning hanging in the back. So I said, "Man, you're doing good for yourself." You know? He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "You got dry cleaning."
No, I just don't know how to iron clothes. That's why I'll pay for the dry cleaning for somebody else to iron it.
I just throw it in the dryer, man.
We are on SCOTUS Watch this morning. The Supreme Court is expected to wrap up their session with several rulings. I believe there are 6 rulings outstanding, which we could expect to see today, including one on birthright citizenship. We'll talk to Hannah Davis from FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, about that and just the absolute success President Trump has had on the border. Also, Frank Figliuzzi will join me today. He is the former Assistant Director of Counterintelligence for the FBI. Michelle Pollino will be on with us. We're looking at possible new tariff deals with India and China, and that meteor story, too, as we continue this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands in for Richard. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media, and Lance is here as well. C-Spire text line open, too, 601-879-4395.
As if it only knew how.
From the reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Nice little pre-market spike in S&P futures as we are trading at all-time highs. Market opens in a couple of hours. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Lance, looking at some of the birthdays today, I noticed a trend with The Walking Dead. I don't know who these actors are, but did you watch The Walking Dead? That show was so popular, and I love those shows, but I never got into The Walking Dead.
Not really. I mean, I watched a few of them. Never was able to really bite into it all. Interesting stuff, though.
Chandler Riggs is 26. He was Carl, and the actress who played Tara, Alana Masterson, is 37. They're both from The Walking Dead. Khloe Kardashian, 41 today.
Yeah. Wow. It's hard to believe.
The OG Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, is 50. Unless you count, what was his name?
That dude is 50 now? That's my age.
I know, right?
I can't believe that. Wow. Pleasantville in there, too.
I liked, the original Spider-Man I think it was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but now there is so much CGI that I can't get into the Spider-Man movie. The new Superman, I probably will not see until it starts to stream, because it's just too much CGI. Maybe I'm old.
For me. Yeah, I like the older movies.
This will be the get off my lawn old side of me, but bring back the Christopher Reeves, the real Superman.
I liked it when and I know it probably was designed to reduce the cost of movies, but if you hear what they have to go through for the CGI, how long it actually takes to generate all of that, it slows down the process so much, as opposed to old school, stuntmen and all that, and it's very interesting. I'm not a big fan of the CGI because it's seemingly too much action. It's not realistic, I can't buy into it. It's all fantasy.
I said the same thing with the Mission Impossible movie.
It's too fantasy oriented for me. I kind of like something real.
The technology is developing so fast. I do some AI videos for one of my marketing clients, and it may take me 3 or 4 hours to write the prompts for an 8-second video clip, but I'm able to recreate videos that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce in real time.
Well, I'm more of a Captain Kangaroo fan, like Bob. He would have
Bob
been
Keeshan's birthday today.
98. Yeah, I go back to that far back. So the props were, you had your real mustache and the hair combed over, and you just you were you. I liked. That's me though, and that's not a smash or anything against the world we live in today with technology. I understand that's where we are, but I do kind of migrate backwards a little bit into the the older stuff. Yeah, that's
I'm a Captain Kangaroo kid myself. I get it. Ross Perot was born on this day in 1930.
We're going to do this here and we're going to do that there. And let me tell you, if the people write me in, I'm going to run. I'll run if the people write me in.
Helen Keller, born in 1880. Country singer Lori Morgan is 66 today.
Yeah, she's a good one there.
J.J. Abrams is 59. He is the creator of Alias and Lost, also directed The Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, and the Star Trek movies, Mission Impossible, I believe, and a bunch of other movies. And Lee Nash is 49. I'd like to make a request at some point for some classic Sixpence None the Richer.
Okay, well, let me write that one down.
You remember them?
No, I do not. What was that again?
Sixpence None the Richer. Kiss Me was their big song. They had a couple of other songs, too. There She Goes, and I think they did a cover of Crowded House, Don't Dream It's Over. Okay. But they were one of those bands that came out in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s, like 96, 97, sometime along in then. Just kind of at the tail end of the Lilith Fair craze.
Right. Now, I remember the Lilith Fair craze. You're cooler than I am because that one doesn't even ring a bell there.
Only because I played the song about every 2.5 hours on Top 40 radio.
Okay. There you go.
So that's part of the reason why. On this day in history, 196 years ago, James Smithson died and left all of his money to the United States. Fool.
Nice guy.
He is the guy behind the Smithsonian Institute.
Well, that's a very nice gift. Heck of museum. I love museums, so can't really fault him for that.
Have you been to any of the Smithsonian museums?
Been to all of them many times. It's been a while.
It's been days inside each one of them.
I had relatives up there and worked up there once and played a little wooden bat ball after my freshman year, so I had a grand tour of D.C. Loved the place. It's such a unique and wonderful place, especially when everybody's migrating from all over the world in that time in the year where you just see representatives from everywhere that are just lining the streets, walking to meetings, and it's such a lively place. And then you get the winter. And if you're from Mississippi, walking in ankle-deep snow to the Cannon House office building was unique, I should say. That's my favorite word today. I've had it. It was unique. I was like, man, this is cool. I prefer D.C. in the winter when it's nice and cool. Because
if you're wearing a suit, it's a swamp. It's an old swamp.
It
so
is.
It gets.
It's so
you think
hot
Mississippi gets muggy in the summer? D.C. is even worse, I think.
I used to go across the river and play it. I can't remember the name of the little public golf course over there, but you could get like a bucket of beer and a round of golf for next to nothing. And you just go over there and kill about 2 hours so you didn't get stuck in traffic. But you just had to get across the Potomac. That was all. Office was right there. So I really enjoyed the place, though, both times I was there. But it is very hot in the summer. I played ball in the old polyester up there one summer, and man, that was.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's like
breathable cotton is the way to go.
Very swampy. They have great material now. We were wearing the good old stuff back then.
1844, 181 years ago, in a dispute over polygamy, a mob of monogamous Mormons attacked a jail in Carthage, Illinois, and killed the Mormon leaders. And as a result, Brigham Young became head of the Mormons, which is a fascinating story. I don't understand the Mormon religion, but that whole story is just a fascinating one to get into if you ever go down that rabbit hole.
I've done it on YouTube a few times, and there is some really good documentary, style and factual historical accounts. None of the fighting and all of the stuff that happened as they were settling, but from point A to getting to point C, it is very fascinating because it's not an easy story to understand. Like you said, it's got a lot of layers to it. And then when you're considered a prophet, you wonder what you have to do to have that title, because that's how he's known as Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormon Church and prophet. So I don't know what you have to do to be a prophet, but that's a pretty lofty title, isn't it?
There's a big application process. You got to go through a background check. Have you paid all of your taxes? They'll check all of your social media. It's a whole deal, man.
How do you get paid? Do you pay taxes? I mean, how does this work? I want to be a prophet,
I don't know. In the 6 months since I was let go and downside, I think, maybe I should start a church.
I was thinking of that yesterday. I was daydreaming like, man, wouldn't that
do
be cool?
well?
Yeah, I could have the Church of Lance Tolbert. And but no, I was reading about Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, and this was like, wow, man, what a title to have. I wonder if that's a taxable employee there or not.
So we're in that weird time of year, Lance, where all of the college sports, I believe, are done. Hockey, NHL is done. NBA is done. We're 63 days away from college football. Yeah. So the only thing really happening sports-wise is like soccer and Major League Baseball.
I was going to say, if you know soccer, then you got it, buddy.
I do know soccer. I do enjoy soccer.
No, you can have at that. I'm not in any way qualified.
I was watching a little bit of the CONCACAF series last night, actually, with the United States. So I did see a tweet this morning, and you may know more about this story. One of the sluggers from Murray State apparently making a visit to Oxford. So Ole Miss may be able to recruit in the portal one of the guys that knocked him out of the series.
They seem to be wrapping up some good names. I've paid attention. I think we're up to 5 at Ole Miss. I haven't really seen State. I know the new coach, O'Connor, will have a lot of jockeying that will go on, but Ole Miss had quite a few that would be leaving through either graduation, transferring out, or the draft. So it's a big roster rebuild, and so far, adding good bats. I think there was 2 lefty bats. I'm curious to the one at Murray State because they hit the ball well, but you saw the limitations there. That offense against power pitching against LSU, there was didn't do much, I should say. So, it's a big jump. It really is every day in and out in this league and in others like it. Not taking anything away from Murray State, but you never know when you get transfers from maybe not a division down, but a conference out. You want them to come in and play at a high level. You just never know that. It's a risk and a gamble.
The Murray State player was an infielder, Dom Decker.
Decker, yeah, good player. But again, I think there's 3 arms that they've added, and this would be the third hitter. So got a ways to go, and rebuilding a roster that was fairly experienced and had several years in some cases on that team, and with others that were there for a couple of years. So. It'll be a big rebuild. I don't want anyone to think that's ever going to be an easy job, but in the modern era, it's obviously much easier. You throw some money at some stuff and solve some problems, huh?
It's easier, but that doesn't necessarily make it better.
Everybody else wants the same guys too. So
yeah, and they'll throw more money at them, and there's less loyalty, and you don't see the commitments being honored by the players or the schools in some cases, and. We've talked about this.
It's like it's not necessarily professional. It's like semi-pro.
It is. It's very close to being professional. There's got to be reforms coming to NIL and the portal. The portal just too wide open, in my opinion. But that's probably a topic for a different day. But we've got some science news, including the story about the meteor that may have actually hit somebody's house in South Carolina yesterday. A lot of videos of this meteor striking, sweeping through the sky across multiple states. I'll tell you all about that next year on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Seabrook Paint.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
What's up? Let's get the show going.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Travel all around, all across this country. Met a lot of people, met a lot of friends. You got the feeling of a swamp plane running through blood.
I'm just going to warn you, this segment could get interesting. My cat Tiger has decided to get a little ornery this segment.
Yay, I love an ornery cat.
Just woke up from a nap, and there are birds outside of the home studio window, and the shades are down, so he may choose to play with the blinds here in a few minutes. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Lance is here as well.
All right. Good job, Tiger. Yeah, he's a handsome cat. The people need to see him. I want to say thank you for the update on the Mississippi State portal. I did not know they were number 1. I knew they'd added 5 or so players up to this point. Quite a list of names in there too. So more information out there. I don't pay for all that stuff, but Aiden Teal and James Nunnally, I think Chone James, and a couple of others. And then the newest one, I believe, from a couple of days ago was William Kirk, a freshman pitcher. But they're rolling, and that's what you got to do this time of year. And we had another comment on what did we think about movies and TV these days? Like, what is your opinion on like Hulu and Roku? Yeah, it's all over the place. I can't. I'm kind of mixed. Yeah, I like the free stuff, but it's all over the place. I don't know how many bills I pay.
Right, and you wind up paying more than you did for cable by the time you add up all of the streaming services. Yeah. In general, though, I think the whole movie industry is really gone downhill. It doesn't seem like there's anything really original. They're doing reboots and sequels and remakes, and you look at, normally I might get excited about the new Superman movie, but it just looks so fake. Like we've talked about Star Wars before. That was one of the things as a kid that was so endearing about the original Star Wars, is that you could really, it's not a believable story, but you could get into the story. And now with all of the CGI, it just gets harder to buy into it. Very few movies that I actually want to see in theaters anymore. I wanted to see the new Mission Impossible on the big screen, so I went to see that. Otherwise, I think the before Mission Impossible, the last movie I went to see in a theater was Top Gun Maverick, because again, I just wanted to see that on the big screen, relive some of the nostalgia of seeing Top Gun for the first time in the 80s. But very few movies that I want to go to the theater to see. And in fact, I saw a story this week that even the industry insiders, and I think this is very generous, are saying that the traditional movie theater business model has less than 20 years left.
Yeah. See, I was thinking
the movie industry itself will die within 20 years. I think that's
the stories are dying.
Far too generous.
Well, I sat I was really brainstorming yesterday, and while I was sitting out enjoying a little of the weather, and I was like, I love Days of Thunder. I saw it roll across my screen, and the last movie
on the big screen. Yeah,
one of the last movies I saw, I think the last one I saw in the theater was Ford versus Ferrari, and I wanted to see that because it seemed like it would be pretty real. But I was thinking about Days of Thunder, and I'm like, I want to write a script for Days of Thunder 3. And then people are going to be like, well, where's 2? Well, that's the whole point. That's what we're going to have to start doing, is getting real creative, and like, instead of like going chronological, and you're just going to have like a hole in the story where, it's like a whole new group of people or something. But yeah, my Days of Thunder 3 would be a great script because it covers Days of Thunder 2, and it also, but we're going to have to get more creative is what I'm saying. It's just, everything is non-distinctive. It's kind of blends together so much.
I think they're actually working on a sequel to Days of Thunder. I don't know.
That's what
where
made me think of that. I was thinking, let's just skip 2 and go to 3. Like, let their kids do it. Or like the cousins are racing.
I might go see the new Naked Gun sequel on the big screen. It's not one that you need to see on the big screen, but it looks funny. So that might be one that I go to in the theater as well.
Well, let's go to comments, because I know that's a more. Yeah, it looked like CGI going across the sky.
Yeah. So this was all over my Twitter and TikTok feeds yesterday. This flaming object streaking across the skies of several states, and people were obviously panicking. There was scanner audio from South Carolina, people calling 911 in Tennessee and in Georgia. So it was a huge fireball that flew across multiple states. I saw some images on Twitter of holes in somebody's house. This happened around 12:20, 12:30 yesterday. People thought it could have been a falling aircraft or something like that. But it's most likely a meteor, and it would have to be pretty big to be detected in the daylight, because, and this was in the sky for, I think, about 30 minutes. So depending on where you were, you may have started to see it around 12:15, and other states like, I believe, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina began to see it around 12:45, 12:50. So this was something big flying through our atmosphere for almost 30 or 45 minutes, and may have actually disintegrated in the atmosphere, and some of the smaller rocks may have actually hit some people's homes. They're looking for some of the debris now through multiple states. There is an organization called the American Meteor Society, which has essentially said, yeah, we think it was a meteor. But these things happen all the time. We just normally don't see them because they're so small.
Some space
And I'm
rocks.
certainly not an astronomer. I'm not a physicist by any means, but these are some of the weird stories that capture my attention because I'm fascinated by some of that stuff in science. I think we talked a few weeks ago about the odds of an asteroid hitting the Earth, which were an alarming 1%. I mean, anything over like a fraction, I'm going to sit up and take notice. And in fact, they still think that there's a decent chance that it could hit the moon, which would have catastrophic effects as well.
Wake the aliens up, yeah.
Well, yeah, besides that, you're right. There are very few things that, keep me up at night. But if I were to become a prepper, I think the reason I would prep is not because of a world war, nuclear attack. It's from some catastrophic event like an asteroid or a large meteor striking the Earth, because these things do happen frequently. And maybe I get too involved in some of these documentaries on the Discovery Channel and Nat Geo when I can't sleep at night. Mm-hmm. But the Earth is due for a major catastrophic event. You look at Crater, Arizona, Crater, New Mexico.
Crater Lake?
There are multiple places like that.
The Encounters of the Third Kind, that movie where they had the. You have the Devil's Tower, up there in the Dakotas. Then you got some sacred places, though.
Yeah, I think it's in New Mexico where the big huge crater impact that could just absolutely destroy the environment. But things like that would be what I would be more concerned about. Have you ever seen a documentary on the Yellowstone super caldera?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's a huge. I'm not even going to try to explain what a caldera is, but it's basically an inverse volcano that erupts every couple of million years.
It's like when the Earth gets really bad indigestion, and then
it's just going to blow.
And then like 3 of them across the planet will blow up and pretty much mess it all up. Yeah, clouds of smoke everywhere. Can't grow anything. Sunlight blighted.
The Yellowstone caldera, as we know, produced at least 3 major eruptions in the last 2 million years. 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 631,000 years ago. So we're due. Now, it's impossible to predict. You would think that maybe you would start to detect some seismic impact on these super eruptions evolving. But then if you get alarmed, do you want to know?
Well,
because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't, can't drop a bunker buster bomb on it and blow it up.
Well, you can take that Bezos space pod thing and head out to space. But, yeah, there's apparently, and you never know if any of this stuff is real or not, but it's always fascinating, tuning AI into a lot of manuscripts from many thousands of years ago. And saying AI is predicting disaster for the world, and you're going, well, didn't that happen? Wasn't that Nostradamus? And we've had all that every so often,
right? But
it is funny how we're getting that now, where you're starting to say, "Oh, AI is predicting this," and AI, oh goodness, no, please don't.
That's fine. But to go back to the meteor, these small meteors strike Earth
all the time,
almost every day, but they're small, so we don't know about them, we don't see them, but bigger asteroids and meteors like a kilometer or larger strike the Earth about every half a million years, about every 500,000 years. And one hasn't struck us in 500,000 years. So just simply playing the odds and the statistics, you would think that we're probably due for an extinction level event.
Maybe so.
Have a great Friday.
I'm one of those. It's kind of like a roulette. When you're playing roulette and it hits red and green and black and all these, and you go, well, it's hit 15 blacks in a row, so it's got to hit red. No, it doesn't, actually. Probability never suggests it that way, so who knows if we're due or not. But I'm like you. It seems like it would be we'd be closer to that time than further from it if it's been a while. But who knows?
It's been a while. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to give you heartburn on a Friday morning. I'm just saying that at some point, one of these things is going to hit somewhere. If it hits in the ocean, which is most likely, could create tsunamis, firestorms if it hits land somewhere. We could be extinct like the dinosaurs. so just a weird story. But the videos, if you go on social media, I'm sure you can find them, are fascinating to look at because they were captured by dash cams and Ring doorbell cameras across several states and created a little bit of an uproar yesterday. It may have actually struck somebody's house. And those meteors, by the way, very valuable because of the ore that's in there, if you can actually find one.
From the Venable, grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Still no winners in the Lotto America and Powerball jackpots. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross with your Mississippi lottery numbers and information for today. Next drawing for Lotto America is tomorrow night for $2.4 million. Cash value at $1.08 million. You missed the numbers Wednesday night. There were 12, 14, 25, 30, 42, Starball 4, and the All-Star bonus multiplier was 2. No jackpot winner in the Powerball either. That drawing is now up to $155 million tomorrow night with a cash value around $70 million. Wednesday night numbers in the Powerball, 2, 12, 37, 51, 61. Powerball 22, and the multiplier was 3. Lance, you got the double play and Mega Millions numbers?
Yeah, let's go with double play here. Numbers from Wednesday the 25th, 111, 49, 57, 61. Powerball of 25. In the Mega Millions, it's up to $348 million. You have a drawing tonight, the 27th. It'll be for a grand total of take-home pay, $155.5 million. And your numbers from the Tuesday drawing, 10, 11, 18, 24, 60, Mega Ball of 20.
Mississippi Match 5, that jackpot growing again, $219,000. No jackpot winner last night. The numbers were 1, 4, 5, 10, 16, which I believe was my high school locker combination.
Yeah, I had to have those written down, man. That's two more numbers than I would have been able to keep up with. Yeah. But you cash $3 $500 midday Thursday drawing 402, evening 193. Cash for $5,000 midday drawing 3421, evening 4586. Fireball of 0, cash pop of 6 in the midday, and you got a fireball of 8 with a cash pop of 15 in the evening times.
Mega Millions jackpot now $348 million. Players' next shot at this massive prize tonight. Every Mega Millions ticket now automatically qualifies, automatically includes a multiplier, meaning non-jackpot prizes automatically multiply by 2, 3, 4, 5, even 10 times. Grab your ticket and pick your numbers. Don't miss your chance for a mega win in the Mega Millions. $350 million. And you can get in the fast lane, too. Only one NASCAR Powerball drawing remains. Next drawing is Thursday the 3rd, when these winners will each take home $15, and all winners qualify for the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff, racing towards $1 million in a grand prize. Chance to attend the NASCAR Championship Series. You got until 9 a.m. Thursday to enter on the 3rd. To sign up, you got to be a Mississippi Lottery Insider, resident of Mississippi at mslottery.com. To become a Mississippi Lottery Insider and automatically receive the entry form, plus the Sizzling Summer Cash promotion is still going on as well. Enter any non-winning hot game like the $2 Heat Stroke, $5 Blazing Bucks, and the $10 Red Hot Cash into the lottery's newest bonus promotion, Sizzling Summer Cash. Shot at prizes from $500 to $25,000 in cash. Next drawing for that is Wednesday. Click on the bonus promos tab at mslottery.com to get into the Sizzling Summer Cash promotion. A lot of winners in cash for yesterday, Lance.
Yeah, there are plenty of winners there. I was not one of those, but we're going to roll with it anyway. Players from Millry, Alabama, and Oxford each won $800. Saltillo woman won $845 over there in West Point. A Chicago, Illinois man on a trip through the South, I suppose, $1,350 in the pocket. That'll go a long way down here on some gas money. Won that over in Shannon, Mississippi. A Columbus woman, $2,500. won that in Columbus as well. A Jackson woman, $2,600. A Fayette man won $2,700 in Natchez. A Monticello man won $5,000 at Ramey's in Monticello. And if somebody from the north was here, they'd say Monticello. But a Thomastown, Alabama woman with the big winnings today, $10K on 2 tickets from Jimmy's Mini Mart in Tumsuba.
Cash Pop winners included an Ackerman man who won $1,000 from Zippin' 2 in Ackerman. Players from Macomb and Jackson each won $1,200 on tickets from Be Quick and Liberty, and in Liberty and a Walmart Superstore in Richland. Prentice woman won $3,500 on a ticket from Fleetway and Sumrall. Another Prentice woman won $2,500 on a ticket from Gas and Grub in Florence. And a Boonville woman won $3,000 on 3 tickets from JR Food Mart and a Boonville Mart Exxon in Boonville. Lucky woman there. 3 tickets.
It takes 3 sometimes. Lucky number 3. Match 5 winners. A Canton man won $800. A Coldwater man won $806. And I hope I'm saying this right, a Lacombe, Louisiana man with $1,000 in winnings on a ticket purchased at the Keith Superstore number 91 in Wiggins, Mississippi.
A lot of winners. You can get all of the information, mslottery.com. Be sure to enter the Sizzling Summer Cash Bonus Promotion and the NASCAR Powerball Playoff at mslottery.com. Updates on the big, beautiful bill, some tariff news, and more next hour. We've got Fox News and SuperTalk Mississippi News here at the top of the hour. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands in for Richard this morning with Lance. C-Spire text line open, too, at 601-879-4395.
But I am still around. I'll always be around, around, and around, and around, and around. I fly a starship across the universe divide, and when I reach the other side.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Now, you prepare that fetcher valve with some 3-in-1 oil and some gauze pads. And I'm going to need about 10 quarts of antifreeze, preferably Prestone. No, I'll make that Quaker State. I'm going to need some pliers and a set of 30-weight ball bearings. What? It's so simple. Maybe you need a refresher course. Hey, it's all ball bearings nowadays.
That is perhaps one of my favorite movies of all time, Fletch. It's all ball bearings.
I love 1 and 2. Yeah, they're amazing.
Fletch 2 was weak. Did you see Fletch Lives?
Yeah, with John Hamm. Not a fan.
John Hamm, yeah, it was a movie. It was about 90 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But I did watch that. I actually paid for that on Amazon Prime, I believe, is where that was.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's money you will never recover.
No, it's not. And I was sorely, there's no, you just can't duplicate Fletch.
No.
Last weekend, I think I caught the remake of Vacation with the guy from The Office.
Ed Helms, yeah.
Ed Helms, yeah. And
it's a spin-off.
There were
some funny moments in that one.
Certainly not the original Vacation.
Swimming in the cesspool and all that. Right. That was the car to me was the funniest thing. The Korean minivan or whatever they rented. That I think that was probably the best part of the movie.
And the best cameo. Chevy Chase showed up in it, but the best cameo had to be the family truckster.
Yeah, exactly. The truckster and all. It was great. To me, there was some good throwbacks in that. But yeah, the Confess Fletch or whatever it was called, not a fan. Not when and I love both 1 and 2. 1's the best, obviously, with Fletch, but I can't say that I don't really appreciate 2. With R. Lee Ermey in there as the preacher, the evangelist.
I know I've seen it. I don't even remember any of Fletch 2. That's how bad it was.
It was set in Louisiana. Yeah, it was kind of a throwback, very politically. It had
I do remember. Okay, now that you say that, I do remember that the Mattress Police.
Yeah, it was something, man. I have a bunch of Fletch cuts, and that's one of my favorite. Airplane and Fletch are two of the movies I migrate to whenever I need to laugh. I love Lloyd Bridges. picked the wrong time to quit amphetamines. Just those little one-liners like that. And he's just so disheveled. And then I love the one with Shatner. Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the mornings that I'm having now. I picked the wrong day to stop doing.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorites.
This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. And if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. And that's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com. We'll talk about immigration this hour with Hannah Davis from the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And the former FBI Assistant Director of Counterintelligence joins us next hour. We're on Supreme Court watch today, Lance, and we'll probably start to see some of these rulings in the next hour. Their 9-month term ends today, and I believe there are half a dozen rulings still expected, including a pretty closely watched case on the Trump attempt to end automatic birthright citizenship. It will be fascinating to watch how the court rules on this. They've got a 6-3 conservative majority, and with these 6 cases, doesn't necessarily mean that the conservative-leaning court will rule in Donald Trump's favor. Some of the other rulings expected today, issues on voting rights, religious rights, health care, but the birthright citizenship dispute is the one that's going to attract the most attention. It's a look not only at the lawfulness of the proposal itself, but whether federal judges have the power to block it nationwide as that litigation continues. The court says about the so-called nationwide injunctions and what they rule on these injunctions could have wide-ranging impacts with, as we've seen, judges frequently ruling against President Trump on his broad use of executive power. Court also has the option of sidestepping a decision on it at all on that issue and instead taking up the merits of the plan. Under the 14th Amendment, and here's where it gets interesting, where the court may decide to rule against President Trump. The 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And the longstanding interpretation of this provision, as understood by generations of Americans, including legal scholars on the left and right, is that anyone born on American soil is an American citizen, with a few minor exceptions, including people who are the children of diplomats. Again, just because there's a conservative majority on the Supreme Court doesn't necessarily mean they're going to side with Trump, and it would not surprise me if we saw a couple of those conservative justices ruling against President Trump on this particular case. But the injunctions aspect of it is what could really affect President Trump and his executive orders. Otherwise, it's been a pretty messy week for Senate Republicans, behind schedule on the big, beautiful bill, in part because of the Senate parliamentarian, as part of the Byrd rule. The parliamentarian has broad power to decide what can be in the reconciliation package and what can't. We haven't seen the fine print fully nailed down yet, and frankly, at this point, anything is possible. This weekend, there could be many rebellions amongst Republican members, be success, failure, delays. Some of the key provisions could be rewritten. There's no sense from the people I've talked to on the Hill of doom up and down the hallways, but it is likely at this point that this bill could get delayed. But it wouldn't surprise me either, Lance, if suddenly it all came together and got passed by the Senate over the weekend. The president's still pushing for a July 4th deadline on the bill, which we have not even seen yet. There's no link to the bill. You can't read the bill. It doesn't exist. We don't know how much it's going to cost. Maybe because there's no finished product, which we may see maybe this weekend, maybe Saturday or Sunday. One problem to solve in this bill is the differences on SALT. The state and local tax deduction. Medicaid cuts are also an issue. Tax credits for clean energy. The level of spending cuts. It's all up in the air right now and completely being rewritten. And as I mentioned, the Senate parliamentarian, her name is Elizabeth McDonough, has cut many of the key provisions that Republicans wanted to have included, including a provision on Medicaid savings. Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama said that her job is not to push a woke agenda and called for her to be fired immediately. A couple other senators proposed a plan to limit the service of the Senate parliamentarian to 1 6-year term. Elizabeth McDonough has been in place in that role since 2012. Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee said the Senate parliamentarian holds unchecked power over major legislation despite never being elected by the American people. Interestingly enough, it was just a few years ago in 2021 that Democrats were the one criticizing McDonough when she ruled that a minimum wage increase and immigration reforms were out of order in that reconciliation bill. But, times change fast. Senate Majority Leader John Thune and some other senior Republicans talking about firing the parliamentarian, even though Democrats obviously now defending her because they believe that the cuts need to be made. It's just a reflection of the political era that we're in now. She's got a job to do and has rules to follow under this reconciliation package. That said, this bill does need to move forward. We've talked about the need for more cuts and to lower our national debt, but nothing can be done until the big, beautiful bill, which is part of the problem with these omnibus packages. It just contains so much that it becomes difficult to go through. One of the things I'm hearing from some of my people in D.C. is the debate over public lands. Senator Mike Lee from Utah has a plan that was defeated to allow the sale of public lands in 11 western states. He's been trying to rework this effort in the past few days, but even some of his Republican colleagues are in opposition to this. Ryan Zinke from Montana, who's former Secretary of Interior, said he would vote against any reconciliation bill which included a plan to sell federal lands. And he's not alone. He signed a letter with 4 other House Republicans saying that they would vote against any Senate-passed bill with public lands for sale. Valadao from California, Bentz from Oregon, Simpson from Idaho, and Newhouse from Washington were among the ones opposed to selling public lands. So there's a lot to watch in Washington, D.C. this week and over the next couple of weeks as the president pushes for that big, beautiful bill to get done before the self-imposed July 4th deadline. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Interesting, too, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to see the Senate strip the artificial intelligence moratorium out of the bill before it gets back to the House. It's a 10-year moratorium that would prohibit states from having any sort of control over AI in their states. She wants that out. She had said a couple of weeks ago that she didn't realize it was in the version of the bill passed by the House. Again, read the bills. But when they're this massive and pushed through so quickly, a lot of the stuff is slipping through. We'll talk about some of the intelligence leaks in a minute here on Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands, and for Richard Cross. C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. You can find me on X as well at Scott Sands Media.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Blinking, beeping, and flashing lights. Blinking and beeping and flashing. They're flashing and they're beeping. I can't stand it anymore. They're blinking and beeping and flashing.
And I'm tired of taking blame when I ain't done nothing wrong.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands in for Richard this morning. Lance, did you guys talk about the alligator Alcatraz this week?
The alligator Alcatraz? What is that?
No,
I don't think so, yeah.
Apparently you didn't. There is a plan to build an immigration detention center, which some people on the internet are calling alligator Alcatraz.
I knew that they were thinking about opening it. I didn't have a clue on a nickname, though.
It's like 39 by 40 square miles in the Everglades, just west of Miami and near or in the Everglades National Park. So this would be a huge detention center for illegal immigrants in Florida. It's going to be like tents, trailers, very light infrastructure. So you're essentially going to have illegal immigrants camping in the Everglades. And
I hope they're from the equatorial areas of the world.
Right. But because of the location, nearly impossible to escape. Can you imagine trying to trudge your way through the Everglades with?
I hunt in that kind of stuff pretty regular, and I'd do it, but I don't know about anybody that doesn't know what they're doing. I've flown in on a private plane about 50 feet over the Everglades, and it goes for a long way. So you better be in for the long haul if you want to slog through that mess.
Well, and the
bring a lunch.
the pythons, the poisonous snakes.
You better be able to eat whatever's around you quickly, because it goes on for an expanse. It seems forever.
I think it's a great idea and a great use of land. We certainly need apparently more of these detention facilities, especially as the court continues to rule against President Trump being able to deport these criminal illegals elsewhere. I think the harsh environment sends a pretty strong message to potential illegals, and it's a no-nonsense approach that we've seen from President Trump in the past. There's no reason to coddle these people in luxury hotels in New York City at a cost of millions of dollars to taxpayers.
I agree. It's kind of the same way when you talk about prisons. If you're going to just hold them, then I don't think that it should be as luxurious at times. There should be some Spartan accommodations to maybe inspire one not to want to go back there. Right. But again, I understand there's civil rights and human rights issues as well, so you got to kind of follow those in this country. We don't get to just throw them in the slammer and forget about them either. So you got to kind of walk that balance.
The alligators make for pretty good guards.
Those are good guards, especially or hungry gators. They're really good at it.
Very
little babies gators around, the mamas will eat you quickly. So
this is a big story this week, too. The Trump administration plans to limit sharing classified information with Congress after somebody, and I think they may be closing in on who, leaked an internal assessment suggesting that Saturday's bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities were not as successful as President Trump claimed. The FBI is investigating this leak from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency's battle damage assessment. The White House has essentially said this week that we're declaring a war on leakers. The FBI is investigating the leak. The intelligence community is figuring out how to tighten the process so we don't have deep state actors leaking parts of intel analysis that have low confidence to the media. They're going to limit posting to CapNet. If you're not familiar with CapNet, it's a system that the administration uses to share classified information with Congress. And every time they do, it mysteriously leaks. It's weird how that happens. I do believe that Congress has the right to know what's going on after the fact. You certainly don't want to signal potential attack on an adversary. But when this information is getting out the way it has, it's damaging not just to the administration's reputation, but also to our national security. And that needs to stop. And I think that even if a member of Congress has leaked this information, they should be prosecuted. We're seeing the reports from the attack on some media outlets that relied on anonymous leaks of this classified low-confidence report saying that Iran's nuclear program was delayed by months and not years, trying to frame it as a failure to weaken President Trump's credibility. And what we learned yesterday, a remarkable press conference by SecDef Pete Hegseth and General Kane on the success of the mission. I think, Lance, Monday, you and I talked about some of these reports themselves because we had limited information at the time that said there were trucks that may have been able to evacuate some of the enriched uranium from the Fordow facility. But what President Trump has said is, no, they were just trying to cover the ventilation shafts, kind of like putting plywood on the ventilation shaft on the Death Star. They were trying to cover up the places where a
little bit of
these
a design
bombs
flaw.
could hit. Yeah, a little bit of a design flaw. But what we saw yesterday was that the technology is there to land that first bunker buster and then put 5 more in the same exact hole. I don't know, and I don't think any of us know at this point, whether that enriched uranium was completely destroyed, but it's certainly now under a pile of rubble that's going to make it hard to get to for some period of time.
Sure. Well, and anytime CNN covers a story much differently than it had a few days ago, I think it deems to dig in a little deeper. And they were very positive about the damage now that it has been assessed a little bit deeper and have reported such, and seemingly going along with the story more so now. So, when the more left side seems to kind of come back center on something, maybe there's a little bit more information that we don't know, but that is there for those that are within the loop now. But yeah, you saw a lot of folks trying to discredit the bombing and whether it actually did any damage or not. But accordingly, I think we're a little further along. And as you and I discussed, now we have a little bit more information. It looks like it could be set back for years rather than for months. And quite frankly, I don't really think it matters one way or the other. I mean, at some point, Iran's got to deal with the reality that we don't mind sending a few bombers over there and blowing up a nuke facility that we don't believe should exist. I mean, that doesn't cost us near as much as it does to them to continue rebuilding and going deeper and all this. So at what point does it really start to cost us? Because I think a
lot of our taxpayer money went to Iran to build their
good point.
facilities.
So if we didn't have that $16 billion that had been given and for unfrozen and also other cash. So yeah, you make a great point. So at some point, the people are going to say, hey, man, we need some hospitals, we need some roads and streets, and, we need things that are actually for the people. And sitting here playing a saber-rattling war with the world, I'm not sure is the best expense of their money, and maybe they'll wake up and realize that.
There's, sometimes memes are actually a useful way of sharing news. I saw one that was missiles being launched by Iran and the Israeli Patriot missiles, and the meme was just simply my tax money, somehow also my tax money. And this is one of the cases where that's absolutely true.
Well, considering that we fund, when it comes to Israel, their military is built off of our hardware predominantly, and when you look at Iran, the money that we have allowed them to use quickly over the last couple of years has definitely been targeting those of us, that if you're helping Israel or if you're, trying to ship through the Red Sea or things like that. So, yeah, I mean, we've been funding both sides of the disaster, and that's what Americans should really have a problem with rather than picking a side, is that we're funding two sides of a war.
And that's always the case. On the C-Spar text line, somebody said the only way to know for sure if there are spies on the inside. If so, they cannot expose that info publicly without compromising their cover.
Well, they said it's a deeply reliable source that they've used long term. So, yes, there's something or somebody there.
And that's the problem with the initial reporting on Monday, is that initial battleground damage assessment was done using satellite technology. But now, we know that there are Mossad agents inside of Iran that were on target, that there were special operators inside the country that probably have much better intelligence than just being able to look at a satellite image, and from sources within the Iranian government itself, which there's now a deal on the table for part of this peace deal between Iran and Israel, and a ceasefire that I think will be problematic in the future. President Trump has proposed letting Iran develop nuclear energy for domestic energy reasons, which basically allows them to continue to enrich uranium, although not to weaponize it. And he also wants to unfreeze Iranian assets, which we know Iran has used to pay to support terror organizations like Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas in the past. So I'm afraid that that's just setting up the next future conflict. Let's continue to put that economic pressure on Iran so that they can't, and it forces, as you said, it forces perhaps change from the inside. We're not advocating for regime change because we've been highly unsuccessful at that in the past.
Yeah, but I'm not in for all that.
But if the people make a change, then that's obviously needed. More on the immigration topic in this expected Supreme Court ruling next with Hannah Davis. She's with the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Give a woman a ring, and that's the way it goes. Life ain't fair, and the world isn't mean.
From the Seabrook Paint.
And of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Good morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross continues. Scott Sands in for Richard this morning. Find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line is open too, 601-879-4395. Hannah Davis joins me now from the Federation for American Immigration Reform, fairus.org. Hannah, it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So one of the things we're waiting on this morning, probably in the next hour and a half, is the Supreme Court ruling on birthright citizenship. What does FAIR expect to see from the Supreme Court today, especially with regards to 14th Amendment rights?
Well, I believe that what they're voting on is more so the injunctions, whether or not lower court judges are allowed to unilaterally block the commander-in-chief. Currently, I think just in this second term, Trump has seen over 40 injunctions from lower court judges. And so more so than arguing about birthright citizenship, they're going to be focusing on that. I don't anticipate the Supreme Court having a decision specifically on whether or not Trump can reverse birthright citizenship, but more so the injunction component.
We've never seen this many challenges to executive orders before. Just this month, Supreme Court allowed President Trump to deport migrants to third countries, which overturned a lower court ruling. President Trump is suing I believe all 15 Maryland federal judges over a pause on deportations. There's a Boston judge who was challenged for rejecting third country deportations. The Supreme Court permitted Donald Trump to end Biden's humanitarian parole and temporary protected status for 1 million immigrants. And the ACLU, of course, involved in many of, not all of these cases over the legal battles. So everything Donald Trump has tried to do to secure our border and get rid of these millions of people who are in the country illegally has gone to court.
Yeah, most of it, yeah. Even though, despite that, though, the border's still looking good. You know, it's no longer porous. Monthly encounters are down. Releases into the nation are down. I think it was just in May of this year, there were 0 releases into the nation's interior. And if you compare that to last year, in May of 2024, under the Biden administration, there was like 62,000 releases into the interior. So despite the legal challenges the current administration has with a lot of things surrounding immigration, there has been some impactful change, and we've noticed that at the border.
You know, one of the things we'll talk about more next hour with a former assistant director of the FBI is the terror threat, the national security risk from the thousands of Iranian nationals that were apprehended at the border and the many that got away that we don't even know about, the special interest aliens that pose a national security risk.
Yeah, that's a big issue right now. I mean, under Biden, we saw over 10 million illegal entries. They were released into the nation, and then probably over 2 million to 3 million gotaways. And those are the ones that we're really worried about because, you know, under Biden, they were just releasing you right into the nation with minimal vetting, giving you a court date for years later. And so those that were purposely evading capture are the ones we need to worry about. And a lot of them are suspected to be tied to Hezbollah or some other Middle Eastern terrorist organization. You know, they just arrested someone in Mississippi, actually, that was a suspected terrorist, you know, and they're a known Iranian. And so I think it was last weekend, the big story for immigration was that there were over 11 Iranians arrested. And then just a few hours ago, late yesterday, the Trump administration comes out and says that they've actually arrested 130 this past week. And there's over 600 sitting in ICE detention beds, you know, waiting for removal proceedings. So I think they're taking a very proactive approach to go after these known and suspected Iranian nationals. But no, you're right. I mean, as Tom Homan said, and he's the border czar, we don't know who they are. We don't know when they came in. We don't know what they want to do here. And it's one of the biggest national security risks we've seen as a nation as a whole in a very long time.
Well, Hannah, we saw that after the terror attack in Boulder, a crackdown on visa overstays from the Biden era. So it's critical to make sure that CBP and ICE and the FBI are able to prevent these future attacks by unvetted migrants.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The minimal vetting we've seen for the past 4 years isn't going to fly anymore. It's led us to situations like the Boulder situation or the Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was, wrongfully deported back to El Salvador. And these nationals, these Iranian nationals we're seeing, even the ones that aren't inherently associated with a known terrorist group, a lot of them have drug charges, visa overstays, that kind of thing. So domestic violence rap sheets. So yeah, the vetting has to happen when we encounter individuals at the border, regardless if they're claiming asylum or they're just trying to come in or sneak in. We have to do some credible fear screenings. And then there needs to be constant updates with these individuals, regardless of what type of visa or pathway they've come into the nation. We need to be putting eyes on them very regularly.
Well, and that's why, Hannah, this Supreme Court ruling this month allowing President Trump to deport illegals to third countries like South Sudan as an example. How is that critical? How is that decision important to expedite deportations and bypass some of these liberal judges?
Yeah, it's paramount. Like we're seeing right now, we'll go back to the birthright citizenship thing. These left-leaning judges are inherently against the administration, even if it's to a fault, and so being able to safely deport someone to a safe third country rather than returning them to their country of origin, which they would probably likely do nothing to them once they're there, is a good idea. I do believe that there's been some injunctions surrounding that as well, though, too. So that's probably going to be a fight for the administration.
It's interesting. Obviously, the Trump administration has prioritized arresting the violent illegals first as a priority, but I think there's also been an 800% increase in nonviolent illegals who have also been apprehended. It's a critical point to make because they've committed a crime by coming into the country illegally. So they should also be apprehended. I do believe that the gang members, the drug traffickers, the human traffickers should be prioritized. But there was an interesting pause, a so-called pause on raids of farms and hotels because that industry pushed back on these apprehensions. Does Fair believe this compromises his deportation goals, or is it more of a pragmatic move to balance the country's economic needs, if you believe that line of thought?
Yeah, we at FAIR don't believe that just because there's someone who's a non-citizen or an illegal alien working, say, in the hospitality sector or the agriculture sector, that they should just be able to fly under the radar. It's actually not a good thing for illegal alien and essentially servitude labor where they're being paid pennies on the dollars to be the backbone of our economy. I think it was back in 2019, there was a meatpacking plant that was raided and everybody was like, oh no, what are we going to do? Meat's going to go up. What are we going to do? No one's going to fill these jobs. The next day, there was like a dozen American citizens that wanted those jobs. So if we start paying people a livable wage when it comes to those specific sectors of the industry, Americans will take them. That's been a trope for so long that, Americans won't go into fields or Americans don't want to work in hotels. And it's just not true, And so this indentured servitude, essentially, that illegal aliens are getting paid so little to take up American jobs and, like I said, be a backbone to the economy. That flying under the radar is not okay. And it's something you see a lot in the immigration debate where regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, people get very squishy about that topic. And so, yeah, you're right. The administration. Go ahead. Even
among Republicans who are pushing to stay out of that economic sector.
Yes. And that's why the current administration is kind of walking back what they said. They said something at first and they're like, hey, we're going to leave them. We're going to go after them. Now we're going to leave them be. Okay, maybe we'll go after them again. It's a delicate situation. And it is because of the economic factor.
How can we push back against these protests that we're seeing erupt in cities like Los Angeles and kind of counter that narrative from these groups that are pushing back on these important policies?
You mean like the No King's Day protest or more so the anti-ICE protest? Which one?
I can't keep up with all of the protests, Santa.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I live in the DC area, and we're like the protest capital of the nation. So, but LA is, you can't hold a candle to them. So, these anti-ICE protests, I mean, I think a lot of them are angry. I think a lot of them feel justified in their opinions, and they have a right to protest peacefully, of course. But it's just, I mean, it's the end result of sanctuary policies. I mean, if you really want to get to the nitty gritty of it, these sanctuary states and these sanctuary jurisdictions, they block ICE from being able to peacefully and safely intercept illegal aliens in a jail system. And so they have to go and do raids and sweeps, and the optics of that are horrible. People don't like to see it, even if you're pro-ICE. No one wants to watch a raid. And so, and with that comes the protest, and with that comes the politicians trying to block ICE and all of that. And it's basically the end result of sanctuary policies. So that's my hot take. I think that if we got rid of sanctuary policies across the board, there'd be less protest, because what are they protesting? Because they're not going to be able to see the raids. They're not going to be able to see the sweeps.
Hannah Davis, Federation for American Immigration Reform, fairus.org. Great to have you on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Also important to get this big, beautiful bill passed to provide more funding and resources for ICE and CBP. Yeah, I know there are problems with spending in the bill, but it does provide the resources that the Trump administration needs to make sure our border remains secure. More on that and the threat of terrorists inside the U.S. next hour with Frank Figliuzzi, former director of the FBI.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi, streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard this morning. Find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line open as well at 601-879-4395. Market opens in just over 30 minutes. A little bit of a sell-off in the S&P futures, which not really unexpected. We've been trading at all-time highs the last couple of days in a massive uptrend since Sunday. This was an interesting story on the financial markets yesterday, Lance, and I don't know if you dealt with mortgages when you worked in the industry or not, but home buyers, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, have ruled that users in the U.S., potential homeowners, can use cryptocurrency assets to strengthen their mortgage application, which is a pretty interesting reversal of policy. And Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's financing deals before, but it could potentially, I mean, that's such a volatile market that it could capsize overnight. And I'm not sure I want to approve a mortgage that's backed by fart corn. It's just, I'm not sure.
I mean, you know how mortgages are securitized. I mean, they're sliced up into, if there's 30 years or a 15-year mortgage, they're sliced up into 30 different investments or 15, packaged up in the form of a mutual fund or some type of fund that offers you some great rate and guarantees and all that stuff. And they're only as good as the person's ability to pay them, though. That's the thing. So if you're collateralizing a debt based on an asset that has a tendency to spike up and down, you're offering a lot of craziness.
Of your stock assets, your 401ks.
Yeah, but I mean, are you going to securitize a loan based on cryptocurrency and sell it to older folks in their retirement plans and say it's secure? Because we ran into that once before with the 2007-2009 crisis. I mean, like if the securitized asset isn't worth junk, then the bonds that you're selling people aren't worth junk, and you're going to have a government come in and clean it up again
and bail it out again.
And that's the problem with debt. Debt is not a straight line. Debt is a circle. It's just us, and whoever we trade with, and even China, even the BRICS buy our debt, and we buy their debt. And anytime somebody needs debt, there's always money there, mysteriously and automatically, to buy debt and to create more debt. That's how the whole system works. No debt is going to get paid off ever, not with $35 trillion in debt or whoever else.
No,
so it just gets recycled.
It's not even a real number at that point.
No, it's not.
And when you're dealing with crypto, I mean, even something that's been as relatively stable as Bitcoin, we see the volatility in that. You might have Bitcoin trading at $110,000 one day, And overnight, the U.S. strikes Iran and it drops below 100,000.
Yeah, it'd be the same as oil, right? I mean, or natural gas. You really want to securitize your home loan with natural gas prices or oil prices? I mean, your income is generally going to be, or your hard assets, those that are in accounts and things of that nature that are seen as time, right? I mean, you want to look at something over 6 months, the value of it. I was a vice president of a bank, so on the investment side. You want long-term assets to decide what something's collateralized by, not short-term volatile assets, because then it creates a problem of valuation and loan-to-value. And anytime a loan becomes, non-compliant, who do you think's calling you? It ain't the mutual fund company. It's going to be your bank saying, hey, you owe me $20,000 because now that house isn't worth as much as it was, or your collateral isn't worth, and that's what we do with that.
Look at this conversely, though, too, Lance, is that let's say you have Bitcoin assets. Maybe you got in early and you got $1 million in Bitcoin now that you paid $400 for at the very beginning of the Bitcoin boom. Mm-hmm. Suddenly you're buying a house with 2 or 3 Bitcoins that the bank or the seller now might be worth $3 billion because of the volatility of Bitcoin, or it could be worth $30,000 depending on the day.
Yeah, no bank or no lending institution wants to own your home. They just want to own the debt. They want you to pay them. They don't want to actually own the house. That requires work. You got to mow a yard. You got to turn the air on. You got to do all this stuff. That's your job, right? So, I mean, the end of the day, the lending model works the best when everybody pays their mortgage, and those types of investments are fairly secure. And it's kind of like the transfer portal, though. If you can just do whatever you want anytime you want, I think you're going to create some chaos in there with some unintended consequences. You need order in the lending market. You do, and the way you lend must be based on somebody's real value.
Just to kind of tie into the sports analogy, I've seen several athletes, professional athletes, who have asked to be compensated in cryptocurrency, which is either genius because of the increasing value of some crypto like Bitcoin, or just the dumbest idea ever. We continue to
I don't
make
think it's a good idea. I mean,
these weird financial decisions. Part of it, you talk about the debt that these mortgage brokers are holding, or that the nation owns, but we're a country that's continuing to go into personal debt as well. Personal credit card debt has never been higher. We're now financing burritos on DoorDash.
Exactly. You're financing burritos, right? In burritos.
It make it stop. It just doesn't. I'm not a Dave Ramsey guy, but at some point we've got to get a hold of our own personal finances and national finances too, to get everything in order.
I'm not sure there's an appetite for that.
We as a people, we as a society, and as a culture, and as a country, living well outside our means. Fox News coming up at the top of the hour, SuperTalk Mississippi News as well, and Frank Figliuzzi will join me right after the top of the hour. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands in here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Shake it up. You get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Your Friday morning C-Spire text line open at 601-879-4395. I'm on X at Scott Sands Media. Frank Figliuzzi is former assistant director of the FBI for Counterintelligence, author of several books, including his last, Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killer. Frank, it's great to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me. No matter where you're filling in or doing your own show, I'm happy to follow you around. I just hope you're not some kind of wanted fugitive on the run, Scott.
Well, not as far as you know. Actually, you probably do know. You could run my FBI file. I'm sure it would be interesting. Frank, this weekend, several Iranian nationals were arrested around the country, including one that's reportedly an Iranian sniper with ties to the Iran Revolutionary Guard, arrested in Madison County in Mississippi. How are these Iranians, potential terrorists, getting into the country, these illegals with red flags, getting into the U.S. and then living here for like 8 years without detection or any sort of consequence?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I'm gonna say that this problem is not separate from the problem of millions of people entering the United States without documentation. So there's nothing particularly special necessarily about how these folks got in here. But the concern is that there might be people who are either recruitable once they've gotten here, or much worse, were inserted in here with the intention of doing something bad. And I am going to separate this kind of, I don't want to call it a roundup, but rather a focus on Iranian and the threat from Iran from the concerns about the larger issues of what ICE is doing around the country. Now you say, Frank, wait a minute. I am concerned about what ICE is doing and how they're doing it and the masks and taking grandma and my favorite waiter at my restaurant. But I'm here to say, look, the Iranian threat is real. It's real. And if we need to focus on people who could be called to action, then we should be doing it. So I understand the Iranian threat, and it is significant.
And I want to talk about the redeployment of assets in the FBI to be able to investigate these illegals that are in the country. But when there are so many that have come in and so many that got away that we don't even know about, what kind of, without revealing secrets, of course, resources does the FBI have to be able to vet these individuals or to find these people who are in the country illegally or otherwise that may have ties or may be recruitable by Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Al-Qaeda, all of these terrorist organizations that want to do harm to the U.S.?
Yeah, you've rattled them off, and we've got to talk about Iran's IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You referenced them. They definitely have the ability to hurt us. Hezbollah, although it's been degraded by Israel over in Lebanon, they absolutely have the ability to have operatives put them here or against Western interests. Otherwise, we've long been very bad about knowing who is here and even vetting people who are trying to legitimately come in through asylum and refugee applications. We've got to get much better. But I have to tell you, if you're going to do a records check on and go pick up the phone and call the Iranian National Police and say, "Hey,
is this guy okay?
Can you just?" Yeah, is this guy okay? You're banging your head against the wall. That's not going to happen. Back when I was in the Bureau, we were very concerned about the Iranian student population being recruited and used, not only to steal intellectual property from research projects at the colleges they were at, but also to potentially go operational, go kinetic, so to speak. And the concern that I don't think is being talked about enough with regard to Iran is the cyber threat. Scott, they are quite capable and have frequently waved hello in our command and control systems, whether it's water supply. They're attributed with taking down the command and control of a dam in upstate New York a few years ago. With regard to an actual physical threat, just a couple of years ago, they tried to kill a woman who is an outspoken activist against for the plight of women in Iran. She lives in the New York City area, and they literally recruited a bunch of thugs to try and take her out. And only because the FBI thwarted that is she still alive today. Don't forget, Iran wants to kill President Trump and everyone around him who had a part in killing General Soleimani, who was a revered military leader. And what did Trump do recently when he took office again? He took the Secret Service protection away from those targets, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, for example. So the threat is real. We've got to take it seriously.
Frank, the former or the current Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, Don Holstad, has reassigned a lot of agents from the FBI following the attack on Iran's nuclear sites. Does this mean perhaps that the FBI may have been caught flat-footed by this escalation? Do you think we're exposed now?
So we have good news and we have bad news. Good news, finally, the FBI has said, okay, maybe it wasn't the greatest idea to take our best agents on the joint terrorism task forces around the country and get them up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go support ICE rounding up unlawful migrants. Maybe we took our eyes off the terrorism ball. And that's what I had been hearing by the way, when, these agents are coming from JTTS. They are busy with migrants. They're not necessarily addressing their caseload. So thank goodness, according to reporting this week, even from NBC News, they're back at work addressing their terror caseload. The problem is they're playing catch up, Scott. They've been off this. They've had their eyes off the ball for months, but I'll go even further back. The FBI is very thinly resourced and has been for years. And they've moved and reprioritized Hezbollah, Hamas, to more, screaming issues. And the problem is, have we lost our source base, informant base? Do we have the ability to know who's who in our field office territories? That's my concern.
Frank, you and I don't see eye to eye on everything politically, but I've got a fondness for the Bureau. I've gone through the FBI Citizens Academy. I've spent a week at Quantico going through the Citizens Academy there. And I've met so many of these agents and people who run the Bureau that are doing a tough job. Is this criticism that we're seeing, much of it politically motivated, of the FBI fair, in your opinion?
Well, look, you can't win since Jim Comey, who was fired by President Trump as director, infamously held the press conference and said no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute Hillary Clinton. Then he reopened the case, and half the population says maybe the FBI is politicized, and the other half says, I'm sure it's politicized. And I have to ask people to please separate the leadership and the politics in Washington from the work that the men and women in your local field office are doing to keep your community safe. That's the only thing I can tell people is please don't get wrapped up in this. I just hope that the leadership on the 7th floor right now of the Hoover Building in D.C. is up to the task, because the threat we're facing domestically and internationally is among the highest threats I've seen in the last 30 years.
I wish we had more time, Frank. I know your last book has been out for a while, but I want to tell everybody listening on SuperTalk Mississippi about Long Haul, which is a fascinating look at what's actually happening on our interstate highway system, and it's alarming.
Yeah, it's Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killers. It's a true crime story about a real-life FBI initiative, which is the Highway Serial Killings Initiative. 850 women have been murdered in the past few decades along our nation's highways, and the FBI says it's being done by long-haul truckers. I rode over 2,000 miles in a big rig with a long hauler to study 3 subcultures: what it's like to be a long-haul trucker, what it's like to be a sex trafficked victim, and I talked to those victims who survived being trafficked to truckers, and what it's like to be a crime analyst trying to connect the dots to stop the next killing.
They're able to cross jurisdictions. That makes it harder to track. The statistics are there, though. I mean, we're seeing this happen on the sex trafficking side, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and the killings that are happening across the country as well.
Yeah, if you think, look, I don't have this problem in my little town. I don't have sex trafficking. I may not even have a truck stop here. I don't know what you're talking about. Then this book is for you. It's quite real. And if you say, look, no one in my family, my circle of associates would ever fall into the trap of being sex trafficked, my eyes were opened, Scott. It's happening online, the recruitment and grooming process. And it's young ladies in particular being targeted by someone on the periphery of their own network.
Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killer. Frank Figliuzzi, frankfigliuzzi.com. It's great to see you again.
Anytime. I'm happy to come on with you, Scott.
SuperTalk Mississippi continues. It's Mornings with Richard Cross.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm. I'm Scott Sands. 13th annual Palmer Home for Children Radiothon is coming up Thursday the 10th here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Every year there are children across the state that need a loving home, and a lot of times these kids are caught in really unimaginable circumstances, and that's why we need your help. The Palmer Home for Children doesn't take government money, which makes it even more important for you to contribute and be a part of this radiothon. It's the 13th annual Palmer Home for Children Radiothon, July 10th, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Lance, we were excited. Remember just a few weeks ago about Buc-ee's opening on the coast?
See, very much
well,
so.
This was completely predictable. Now everybody's complaining about the traffic.
Yeah, that's an inevitability.
Generated by the Buc-ee's on the coast. Who would not have predicted that would have been the outcome of a Buc-ee's opening on the coast? Or anywhere, really.
Yeah, everything new nowadays gets that immediate rush, but Buc-ee's has that kind of staying power where the ones I've seen, it's always very busy to get in and out in the parking lot and all that. So it's kind of intimidating if you're not a traffic person, but they spent a good while and a good bit of money to make that exit wider, better, bigger, and badder. So
I'm not sure they made it wider and better enough.
I don't think you can build it big enough.
There were 10,000 vehicles that took that exit off of I-10 in 2021. The weekend after the Buc-ee's opened, it was 42,000. That's a 400%. Am I doing the math right? That's a 400%.
You said over a year, though, the 10,000. Is that what you said, or over a month? On the
per day.
Per day. Okay, gotcha.
10,000 vehicles per day. 42,000 over the weekend that the Buc-ee's opened. So I don't know, without like a major investment in infrastructure, how you fix that. There's things you could do immediately, I guess, like change the traffic lights. I don't know, maybe change the traffic pattern. It's been a while since I've been there off Minge Avenue.
Yeah, about 300% to 400% increase. No, I mean, that's probably on average right now. If you think that's going to slow down, you may want to wait. But I'm like you. I mean, if that's the kind of traffic you're looking at now from here forth, and the extensions and augmentation of that type of exit ramp isn't doing the trick, you probably have to go back to the drawing board at some point. I would imagine.
And the traffic, Buc-ee's hasn't been around for decades, but I'm not seeing it slow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Buc-ee's has opened.
I think once it gets rolling, that's pretty much your expectation. Unless they, mess up their business model, I would imagine they're going to, continue doing their thing.
The barbecue.
Yeah, people like the barbecue and the beaver nuggets or whatever it is, and
the beaver
clean
nuggets,
bathrooms, unless they change that up.
And you gotta think about what it does to the highway, the condition of the roads in that area too, with the increase in traffic. I mean, it's not like we don't already have a pothole problem in every city in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, hopefully the tax dollars that are being generated right there will do the maintenance work for us. Hopefully that'll be how that works. You never know, man. We might need to hire Palantir to figure that one out for us.
Let's not get Palantir involved with anything else tracking.
Man, brother, I went into
our personal information.
I went into a deep dive on that one yesterday, and it was it's kind of shocking listening to the CEO, the founder. He going way back. I didn't really understand the longevity of the company as well as I should have. So I wanted to go back and do a little digging on it, and it's been around for a while. It's really came about and found itself after 9/11, and with the predictive technologies. So it's something else.
They've got more than 20 years of all of our personal information that they've been able to collect, and they're being used on.
So I guarantee you,
now.
I guarantee you, they knew that there would be 42 or 44,000 cars hitting that exit ramp before it ever opened.
Well, we've talked to Robin Tannehill from Oxford that remember her telling us about how they're tracking everybody that came into town for the College World Series.
I think we're used to living in more of a surveillance state now, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's the world that we are in. I love Thomas. You're not MAGA if you criticize Palantir. Well, maybe. I mean, there are some deep ties with donors to the Trump administration that are big pieces of the Palantir equation. I don't believe everything's a conspiracy. I think that he was pretty cool and honest about what he was going to use it for right out of the gate. You may not agree with gathering technology into one umbrella of power, such as Palantir. Should they have that kind of power? I don't think so, but apparently they've been working with almost all the major government entities that need that information, and FBI, IRS, others. So they already have it.
Yeah, they've got. I mean,
this is a Trump thing,
is being used. Everything from license plate readers to when the convicts escaped from the New Orleans prison, the Orleans Parish Jail, facial recognition technology was used to apprehend those suspects.
The one that gets me is listening to the head of the company talking about what it can do to predict. It's almost like a Minority Report mindset where you can look at how people pay. You can look at how people earn, what they do with their free time. These were things he was talking about a decade ago, and it could predict bad behavior. And that's where I think
that's Minority Report stuff.
That's where we're going. That's what I have a problem with. I don't mind there being efficiencies in government to process and do the things necessary. As we always need to be aware of the better way of doing things.
Some of this technology to find the bad actors in society,
exactly,
track down criminals after the fact.
But using that and weaponizing
is that information being gathered and used?
Mm-hmm. And that's the $1 trillion question, right?
We talked about this a few weeks ago about Palantir and how it could be potentially politicized. And that's the danger of having all of that technology and information in one place in a privately held company.
The other side of that equation, though, if you look at the other side of the sword, the one that'll cut you as well, is what are other countries doing with their own type stuff? So are we keeping up? Are we trying to catch up? Are we leading the pack? Is that why we're looking at things this way so that we can stay ahead of the game? Again, it's a much deeper conversation than just saying Big Brother, and I think it's a much more layered conversation than to just say, hey, America wants to spy on itself. I don't like it, but that's where the world's going, and are we behind, in the middle, leading the pack here? Everyone's going to be doing it, just like borrowing money.
The answer is probably yes to all three. Yes, we are ahead in some areas, behind in some areas, and on par in some areas. And if Frank Figliuzzi had more time as someone who's an expert in counterintelligence, that's kind of what I wanted to get into, because unfortunately, some of this information on our signal gathering intelligence capabilities has been leaking out, which has put agents in the field at harm, which has jeopardized some of our technological advantages. But the technology continues to improve and grow every day. There was a story, I can't remember if you sent this to me or if I saw it on my own, the new Chinese fly drone. Have you seen this?
I don't know.
That didn't come from you?
I may have. I go through so many things. Oh, yeah, it was that. Yes, I did see that. Yeah, that was what I sent to you, I believe. Just trying to remember all of them.
The Chinese, and I'm sure America has this technology as well, has developed a drone that's literally the size of a fly. That they can fly and spy on us. So we've got that technology as well.
Yeah, get good at swatting flies, in other words.
Right. Yeah. Just hit everything that's flying around you.
I have a dog for that. He eats everything that flies. So,
and the amount of information that we share voluntarily with our adversaries and with the government, everything that we're doing on social media, every question and piece of information that we're putting into ChatGPT and Grok and the other artificial intelligence sources, that's being gathered
for free, without any protest, generally by the people. And as somebody that used this kind of information, the better data points of accuracy you can get on one individual, the easier it is to predict behavior. So that's exactly what they're doing. But they have multi-layers of information, decades worth of it apparently, and also digging into many different pieces of your life. Not a fan of it, but again,
I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but we're putting this information out there. Yeah. We're letting the governments around the world know literally everything about us, which can be used to weaponize against us at some point down the road.
Sure. I mean, when I was, you're trying to predict the behavior of a CEO or board members or see where their decisions may lead the company, back then you didn't really have social media to go, spy on somebody and know what they were doing with their free time. Those things are readily given now. And it's just
there's a company that I used called Futuri Media that had a product called Top Line. And as a salesperson, if you were going in to meet with a potential client, you could run them through this product, and it would tell you how they liked, what their preferred method of communication is, what their personality traits were, their top 3 personality traits, where...
I love the one the other day
they like to do for fun. So you have all of that information to go in on just a sales call.
Well, and I'll leave on this note, but you hear the commercials now saying, "Hey, this product will tell you that you like NBA basketball and to buy a ticket." I mean, that's where we're going. Is we're going to have a machine tell us what we like because we don't know what we like anymore.
I'm fine with that. Michelle Pollino will join me from Hollywood next here on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Seabrook Paint.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Covering the state and streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands here for Richard today. Lance is with us as well. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. And we're joined by Fox News Radio entertainment correspondent Michelle Pollino, who's getting the hell out of Hollywood and moving to Nashville. Hey, Michelle.
That's right. I'm in Nashville right now. You can see in the Outkick studio that is being built for me here. And
nice.
It's underway, and I'm very excited. Yeah.
So you're not the only one escaping to Nashville. This has been all over my Instagram Reels and TikTok videos the past few days. Taylor Swift making a surprise appearance in Nashville for Tight Ends and Friends, which is Travis Kelce, her boyfriend's little organization. All the tight ends, I guess, in the NFL get together to... I don't know what they do. They probably drink is what they do. But I guess to exchange strategies as a tight end. And she got on stage and sang with Kane earlier this week. And I admittedly, Super Talk Mississippi audience may not like to hear this. I am a Swiftie. I will admit it freely. I'm confident enough in my heterosexuality to admit that I enjoy me some Taylor Swift from time to time. She did, Shake It Off on stage?
Yeah, she did. It was in Franklin. It was a charity benefit for Tight End University. They had a university for tight ends. Who knew?
I don't know what that is, but it sounds fun.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, it sounds fun.
Michelle, I know that you love some tight ends.
I do love some tight ends. Anyhow, she jumped on stage. People knew because Travis was co-hosting the event that she would be there, but nobody knew that she was going to jump up on stage and perform. Kane Brown called her up on stage. She grabbed Chase Rice's acoustic guitar and just got the crowd riled up. And, of course, everybody brought out their phones, recorded the performance. It went viral. And it was adorable. It was adorable, for sure.
I think she enjoyed getting back into a small setting to perform after just massive stadium tours for the last couple of years.
I think so. And, this is where it all began for her. Nashville is where it all began for Taylor Swift. And so she has a home here. We drove past. We were like, where's Taylor's home?
Stalking Taylor Swift.
Tour. That's right.
You might get in trouble for that.
I might. But this is a really special place for Taylor, and I think she definitely, and it's also close to Travis Kelce's home. So this Midwestern spot is going to be lit up in the next couple of years, I think.
I want to stay with country music for a minute because America's treasure, Dolly Parton, has teamed with an unexpected artist. Of course, she put out a rock album of collaborations and rock songs last year before. And Dolly Parton was enlisted for help by Motley Crue to do a new version of their 85 hit Home Sweet Home. Lance, I think you've got a clip of Home Sweet Home, Motley Crue and Dolly Parton.
I have that ready. Let me get my volume right. I don't want to blow y'all away.
First of all, I can't believe it's been 40 years since Home Sweet Home first came out. That was a huge power ballad.
It can't be.
I know. That was a massive song at sock hops in the gym at St. John in Gulfport when I was in high school. That was a great power ballad. And now they've got, this is a career high for Motley Crue, they said, and Dolly said it was an honor and a joy to be a part of this. And I think it all benefits a good cause, too.
Yep, it's for homeless youth, and it's a great charity to help kids who are homeless on the streets get off the streets, and hence Home Sweet Home. That's why they chose the song. Everything that Dolly does is gold. Soon turns to gold.
Yeah, she is America's national treasure, I believe. Just a great person.
Yes.
From everything I know about her. Speaking of nice people, this man is not, but he might walk. The Department of Justice has dropped some of the charges against Diddy in that trial. Is it possible that Diddy's going to get off on this case? And maybe I should have phrased that differently.
I don't. So a couple of things about those drop charges. They weren't necessarily dropped. It became a huge rumor. They talked about these things, and then it came out that they were dropped, and they were not dropped. Or I should say, the larger arson charges were not dropped. The minor charges that involved arson, like attempted arson, those were the charges that were dropped. So, let me rephrase that. The minor attempted charges were dropped, not the larger arson charges. So they remain. I don't know if he's going to walk or not. We're in the midst of closing arguments right now. So the prosecutors argued yesterday. They began their closing arguments and said basically it's his kingdom. He was the king. That was it. And they painted his empire as they painted it as an empire, and he was king. And really, they drove home the sex trafficking charges yesterday.
Which are some of the more serious charges.
Obviously, that surrounds Cassie Ventura, his ex, and Jane, the woman who testified, also his ex. It's been a really interesting case to see these women up there who really loved him and they were forced to have sex with these escorts, because this is what Diddy did, and that's going to be the crux of the case for the government.
Michelle Pollino in Nashville today. Earlier this morning, Lance and I were talking about the movie industry, which some experts, I think it was in Variety this week, said have less than 20 years of life left in the industry. I think that's being generous. You told me last week you were going to a preview of Superman. Did you see that? I think that opens in a couple of weeks. Have you seen that yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. The preview is July 11th.
Oh, so it's later than I thought. Yeah, it's going to be a big summer movie, I think. This weekend, F1, the movie opens with Brad Pitt. I don't know much about this.
He's aging well. He is aging well, that man. Like, he looks amazing. He plays this washed up, old school 90s phenom that got in a really bad Formula One accident. It's called F1. It's about Formula One drivers. And so, he never got to win the Formula One title. And because, he got in that horrible accident. So the guy, one of his buddies, brings him back to race with this young stud. And it's kind of how this old guy and the young stud team up and win. It's a pretty good movie. I mean, if you like racing and,
Well, Lance had said earlier that, what was it, Ford versus Ferrari was the last movie that you went to see, and we were talking about Days of Thunder 2.
Yeah, I'm doing Days of Thunder 3, though. We're skipping 2. We're just going to leap into the future. Whole new story.
Might be a nice one to see on the big screen because of the action involved in it.
Yeah, well, there will be an apocalypse in the middle between Days of Thunder 1 and 3. We're going to be after World War III. That's going to be the setting for Days of Thunder 3 for me, yeah.
The other movie opening this weekend, Michelle, is Megan 2.0, which is just a follow-up to, what was it, like the female version of Chucky, the doll that came to life and killed people?
That's right. This is an AI masterpiece in Megan 2, where it's like Rocky with AI robots. This is what it is. Because, there's a new AI. Her name's Amelia. She's a Russian spy, and she's a killer. And so they have to bring Megan back and upgrade her system to knock out this spy. It's Rocky. It's literally Rocky with female robotic AI. That's what it is.
Maybe the most interesting way I've heard it described, but sure. I never saw Megan 1. I'm sure that's not going to surprise you, but that's what's in the theaters this weekend.
It stars Allison Williams, who's hot. So that's if you think Allison Williams hot, you go to there.
On Netflix, third final season of Squid Game premieres today on Netflix. Michelle Pollino in Nashville, Fox News Radio Entertainment Correspondent. Great to see you. Have a great weekend.
See ya. Have a great weekend.
Super Talk Mississippi continues next. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross.
Filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Sweet Jane, sweet Jane.
Wrapping things up for me, I'm Scott Sands, and for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi and streaming at supertalk.fm. Another hot day across the state and across the country, Lance. We talked about this earlier in the show, like pop-up shower, typical June day, but heat advisories across much of the state with temperatures well above 90 and heat index in some parts of the state above 100. It's what I, as a chubby guy, call pretty miserable weather.
That's what they make short pants and tank tops for, is that kind of weather. Flip-flops and all that. But, we I think it was yesterday or the day before, Richard read out a temperature that was in Death Valley was like 126.
Yeah, but that's a dry heat.
Yeah, that's what they say. But, I mean, I'm not sure that's going to resound with me. People say that about Arizona when they go to Tempe or something. Like, oh, it's a dry heat, though. It's 118, but it's dry. You just got to stay hydrated. Really? Yeah, like I didn't know that. When it's over 90, you better stay hydrated. I don't care how dry the heat is. But, markets
have been open for about 25 minutes and setting new all-time highs on the S&P. Dow is up 243. NASDAQ is up 70. The S&P is up 23, and I see a lot of green across all the sectors except for energy, which seems to be down, and Tesla, a little bit of a hit at the moment. There was a comment on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395 when we were talking about the Dolly Parton collaboration with Motley Crue on the 40th anniversary of Home Sweet Home. They said, I love Motley Crue. I love that song. I love Dolly Parton, but the two of them together are not good. I think Dolly adds an interesting twist to the song, but at some point Is she going to have to step down and retire? And I ask this because I have not heard this clip. I sent it to you blind because I wanted to react and get your reaction in real time. AC/DC is on tour, and there's a video that's gone viral of them performing TNT and some other songs. And I want to hear this for the first time because I have a hot take on some of these bands like Motley Crue and AC/DC.
You want me to hit it now?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right.
So it's kind of hard to tell, but the reactions on social media were, "This is so painful, they just need to stop." Yeah. Another person commented, "Gotta say, Angus Young is really pulling the load on this tour. They'll always be my favorite band, but I'm sitting out this tour." And other fans, keeping it real, said it's an old band. Of course, they're not going to be the same. You don't have to say for them to stop doing what they like to do.
No, I'm
but at
glad
this
they're
point,
let them have fun.
Brian is 77. Angus is 70. At what point should these bands hang it up already? I think when you think about these bands that have been touring as long as they have been, AC/DC, Rolling Stones, Motley Crue, I want to remember them from their highlights. When they were at their peak and when they were at their best.
I just hope Angus isn't still wearing the schoolboy outfit to the on the tour. I really would feel bad for him if he is. It's like, man, you can change. But yeah, the older bands, like I don't have a problem. Shorts. Yeah, I don't have a problem with them having a good time. Go out and have a good time. I love music, and definitely what it takes to tighten all that up and get it right is something that in the heyday is even difficult. It's your prime. It is very hard. So, yeah, getting together as a bunch of old dudes and having a good time and celebrating your life and the work that you've created, I don't have a problem with it. I wouldn't buy a ticket for it. I saw Kiss in some hole-in-the-wall bar in Birmingham. It had to be, God, what was it, 97? There was 10 people there, and it was Kiss. And we were like, what in the world? I mean, this is what Kiss has gotten to. But, things come back around over time, and those crowds started coming back as, they were in their retirement tour. Right, yeah, so I don't know. I don't like having a problem with, those guys having a good time. But I wouldn't go buy a ticket. They got to make
money. Yeah. I understand that. But, we've seen the videos of Guns N' Roses trying to revitalize their career. And that's not the way I want to remember these guys.
Axl Rose, in the way that he is now, no. I mean, he's crazy. He's always been crazy, but it's not the Axl Rose that we all grew up with and saw him slithering around the stage and with Slash up there and everybody. It's life and time have a hard impact on the rocker. So it's a tough life,
Tell me
man. And I'm just surprised these guys are still alive, honestly, after all that they were able to.
I'm now in my 50s and dyeing my hair and trying to lose weight and get a shave. I get it.
It's tough. So I'm happy they're still enjoying themselves, honestly, because we're not all going to be here very long, and I'm glad they're enjoying themselves.
Well,
the music's not good. The music's not very good.
No, it's painful at times. Enjoyed spending my Friday with you, Lance, and with everybody else here on Super Talk Mississippi. Thanks to Richard and everybody for letting me sit in. Have a great weekend. Try to stay hydrated and cool when you can. I'll be back, I think, in a couple of Fridays, so enjoy the weekend. I'm Scott Sands. Find me on X. Leave a comment about the bands that should hang it up at Scott Sands Media on X, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Was a son and now it's her turn to cry. 'Cause I used to love her, but it's all over now. 'Cause I used to love her, but it's all over now.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.